We have a special guest joining us from the WGA, that is the Writers Guild of America, Jim Agnew. Jim, dude.
How's it going? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you perfect. How's it going?
Good. Just to clarify, I'm not with the WGA, but I'm a member of the WGA.
Right. You're not officially representing the WGA. You are a member. You're a screenwriter, a WGA screenwriter. We've been covering a lot of stuff happening within the WGA. A lot of these DEI and DEIA rules. And I got to ask, like right off the bat, and I'm going to bring up some stories and have you comment on it. And we'll also take your questions and comments as well for the 2,000 plus people that are currently watching. Smash that like button. What do you think about these rules in general in a very short period of time? Like the last, I don't know, it hasn't even been 10 years, but the last more than 5 years, there's been a huge, I believe, an overreach from the human resources department to creatives. The human resources department that you pointed out, we had a text exchange, said the HR department that probably has no experience in entertainment. What are your general thoughts about this?
Yeah, I think the big reason a lot of this has happened is because TV became so big and streamers, and those are obviously corporate entities. So everybody's got their fingers in everything. And the last thing, look, I've made quite a few films. It's very hard to make a really great film. This one producer I know says like a movie like Swingers is great because every single person involved hit a home run. For the lack of funds they had, Doug Liman hit a home run. The actors hit a home run. The writers hit a home run. That's the only way you can make a good movie. So it's already stacked against you to try to make a good film or TV show. So then when you get, all this kind of like white noise coming from all these places, creatively, and then from people who don't know anything about filmmaking, we talked about that Amazon stuff, and there's a whole section about how you describe a character in a script. Everybody in the film industry who actually makes films and TV shows doesn't give a shit what it says. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to correct. Doesn't care what it says in that parenthetical after the character. No one sticks to that. That's like the most unimportant thing in the world. And just to give you a few, I guess back to your question is, I don't know where this is coming from, but it's just not adding to making films better or TV shows, which we've all seen. It's more fingers in the recipe and more cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, well, it's always like you and this happens on a film set because you've also directed films. You directed an indie sci-fi film. I think we covered it several years ago, and which was great. And it's you're always getting you're getting pieces of advice, and sometimes advice will come from an unlikely place, and sometimes things will change in the casting process. To me, one of the most interesting, castings that had a benefit was the movie Night of the Living Dead from 1968 by George Romero. Yeah. The lead character was a character in the script just named Ben. He was the smartest guy in the script. He was the guy the audience looked to like what was happening. Not Barbara. She was sort of crazed off her rocker from that experience with the zombie in the beginning of the movie. And George Romero cast an actor named Dwayne Jones. Dwayne Jones happened to be black. He was just the best actor. It's like, well, he's the best actor. He's delivering this stuff. If you remember the 1968 black and white Night of the Living Dead kicked off the zombie genre, wrote all the rules. And everyone on the set asked him, he's talked about this many times. You can look it up. Are you going to rewrite the script? You're going to rewrite the script? Because, you cast a black actor. And he said, nope, not going to rewrite it. Not going to rewrite it at all. And you're missing opportunities to sometimes it's like, but when you explicitly are telling people in the script, they must do certain things. This is from Amazon's page. I think a lot of this has to do with the over corporatization of entertainment, which comes from big tech, which every industry that big tech moves into, whether it's hotels or the taxi cab industry, it breaks the industry. It takes 30% for itself and it destroys that industry. I'm being dead serious. Look at any industry that big tech chooses, whether it's like food delivery, everything, name it. Anyways.
Yeah. Well, let me just give you an example after we talked about this and looked at this. I was trying to think, how would I, pitch a TV show according to this whole guideline that's here. We see that Amazon and MGM are using. How would I pitch a film about a young, sexy FBI agent who gets help from an older man to solve the case, and the bad guy and the serial killer is a transsexual who was denied being, transitioned? How would I pitch that? It wouldn't exist under these rules. And you know what movie I just talked about? Silence of the Lambs. There you go.
Oh, that's right. That's effectively Silence of the Lambs. So this is the thing that bugs me is when I'm reading through this and people, it's this now. I don't know. Do you know this, that we did a video on this, Jim, and Elon Musk tweeted out the video?
No, I do not know that. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, we should have talked about it at the top. But yeah, Elon Musk tweeted out this video, the video that Alan and I did about this, what we're looking at right now. What it tells you is it's creating all these new terrible tropes. I saw the movie ISS, International Space Station, and it stars, the protagonist is a young Black lesbian woman who, by her identity, nothing is going to happen to her. And I was right. She, of course, survives. Spoiler alert, I ruined the movie for you. But yeah, it's unbelievable here. Race and ethnicity, it goes through different types for Black characters. For Hispanic, they're still using that term Latinx. I don't know any Hispanic friends of mine that like that term. They hate it.
Well, here's the big problem though with this. It's these people who created this think that just describing a character is a character. They don't even understand the medium. It's a visual medium. It's not how they're described on a page. It's how what they do. For example, I decided to look up a few other movies. Marion Ravenwood is described as beautiful, which you can't do here. But that's not what we look at when we see the movie. We see that she gets drunk when we first meet her. She's doing shots. She punches Andy. She fights. She does all this stuff in the first 5 minutes. That's the character, not what was said on the page of a document that's basically an internal document. These people are so caught up in things that don't matter.
Yeah, I didn't realize Mina was a thing. That's Middle Eastern / North African characters. Mina. Are they shown in violent situations, especially when linked to terrorism or religious extremism? Are they shown at the extremes of wealth, either as royalty, sheiks, or business tycoons, or at the other end of the spectrum, in roles associated with poverty or as refugees? By the way, all those things exist.
Yeah.
All those things
my friend says that my friend says they're in a sense anglicizing ethnic characters. By taking away what makes their culture unique, you now made them Anglo. You can't insist that a character or an actor do an accent, and so they have to basically do an Anglo accent, a white accent, and to me that just right there you're working backwards. From
last night too when we talked about doing this, I was like, look, I'll think of a few films that would be totally blown out of the water by these kind of rules, would never even get started, right? So I looked at, Tarantino's Cinema Speculation, which everybody should read. And every single movie and every chapter he talks about would not get past go on this list. Every single one. Bullet, Rolling Thunder, Taxi Driver, Getaway. Let's just get rid of all those movies. They can't be made anymore. They don't exist. And then I kind of went on a tangent, started thinking, V for Vendetta, you can't do. The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, the Godfather films, Fight Club, because you're talking about somebody with a disability. It just goes on and on and on.
It's and we're going to talk, we're going to pivot to other things related, but this is so specific. Who put this much? I don't know who wrote this original document, which I assume gets amended every once in a while to whatever new, language is being used. But this playbook is disgusting, and this needs to be rejected by the industry. Is people like yourself, people who are in the trenches, writing screenplays, writing the stories, need to push back against this and say, you know what? we appreciate the suggestions. We're not going to listen to it because, as you pointed out in our original exchange when I sent this to you, what are the qualifications of these people? You pointed out that like one of the women from the HR department used to work at Caterpillar, which is construction vehicles in HR. What does she know about story? Does she know who Joseph Campbell is? Has she even read the Sid Field book on screenwriting? Does she know about like different entertainment demographics, like different things? They just do, even different ages. There is so much. These rules will, if these rules are adhered to, it's going to destroy the industry, is my thought.
Or it already is. I mean, listen, I can talk about it because at the moment, for various reasons, which you can see, I'm not going to be hired by Amazon or MGM anytime soon.
Why are you not going to be hired, Jim? Why are you not going to be hired?
Because I'm a white straight male. Let's just get that out there. That's no secret. But the thing is, it goes deeper too. It's like it's a complete lack of understanding of how the film industry works, how you make films, because there's also a section in production where they basically say that a line producer should not use their crew they always use. They should expand out, hire new people. That's basically the line producer's job, to have an experienced crew come in and knock a movie out. If you told me to like bring in I've produced over a dozen films. If you told me to bring in half my crew as new people, and I'm responsible for $60,000, $70,000 or more a day we're spending, I can't on the job train a bunch of new people. You know,
that's something. Look, Martin Scorsese, right? He's worked with a lot of the same people. He's worked with De Niro. He's worked with Leonardo DiCaprio. He's worked with Thelma Schoonmaker, his editor, to dictate these rules and say you got to mix it up. Sure, you know, if Wally Pfister's not available, Christopher Nolan can hire a different director of photography, you know, or if Hans Zimmer isn't available, you'll get someone else for Oppenheimer to do the score, right? Hans Zimmer really wanted to do Dune, which is why he wasn't able to work on Oppenheimer, whatever. But there is, you know, there is a trust. When you develop that trust, you work with different people that you like to work with in a creative space, because you know $60,000 a day, that's crazy.
That's not an indie film. That's like a $2 million film you're spending that, you know, per production day. So it's like you hire some young kids because you have to, or you're forced to, who don't know how to do gags, and they can't blow a little charge on a car window, you know, to simulate a gunshot, and you're sitting there for 4 hours. You just wasted like, you know, a third of your whole day. So that's $20,000, but you gave somebody a new shot, you know? So that's even, I find even more insane than it's all pretty insane. I mean, it's just, you know, no one's going to go, all movies do not fit into all things. You know, if somebody wants to go write a black lesbian love story, and that's their perspective, their point of view, they don't need all these rules. They're going to write that. But when you're writing John Wick 5, you don't need to like apply the same rules as some, you know, indie film. They're totally different things. It's like all things are not all things to all people.
You just get a sense that they don't know what it's like to make a movie, or to tell a story or anything.
You think?
You know, that they're sitting on the sidelines, you know, and have no empathy or idea that this is what happens on a set, and this is why, you know, you need reliable people to keep people safe, to keep the story moving on.
One other thing, sorry, I'm getting all fired up, Alan. One other thing is, it also says in this whole outline that you should not describe, you know, women as like girl next door or feisty or things like that. So the casting director won't be like boxed in. There is absolutely no casting director that works at a high level that is going to be like, hey, it says feisty, so I can only bring in feisty Latinos. They're the opposite. They push you more than anyone creatively. And they will come up with so many different options. So it's kind of insulting to casting directors on top of it. It just shows a complete, utter lack of understanding how things are made.
Well, it's just annoying that people who've never made a movie tell you how to make a movie. And it's
there's that too. Yeah.
There's that. We're gonna go to your questions in just a second, but I have one last question for you, Jim, before we go to the chat. Is on fire with over 2,000 people watching us live at the moment. But one last question. Does Hollywood push back against this? And do people like yourself start to speak out and say, we're not going to be bound by these rules. We're going to think about the audience first before we think about what's required on a corporate level. And are people going to push back and stand up? Or is a thriving indie industry going to emerge from people just getting sick of this? Because there are so many qualified people like you not working right now. And it's disgusting to me that to see this entire industry implode. So do people push back, or does a new industry emerge?
Well, I think, look, people like me, I can push back. I can do pretty much whatever I want. I've still been working last few years because I work mostly in indie films. I've sold TV shows. I've written pilots. You know, I've done it all across the board. But my main, bread and butter has always been indie films. They do not care about this stuff. You know how indie films put together? If you write a script that can get Guy Pearce in it, you can get $4 million. It's that simple. It's no one cares about any of this stuff in the indie film world. It's all a math problem, dollars and cents, and then secondarily, you try to be creative with it. But the poor people who came up in TV, which has become so corporate with the streamers and all this stuff is in there. There's so many decent people, qualified people that are not working, can't find jobs because it's just become corporate. It's become weird. It's become DEI. I'm sure they don't want to push up against it. They want to, but they won't publicly, because, people whisper in my ear all the time. They're like, when is this going to end? This is stupid. I can't get a job. I got passed over for this. I'm doing double duty on this TV show because all the young writers are horrible, but we'll see. I think the state of the industry is what's going to change everything. Because what did 800 people get laid off at Paramount yesterday? Hundreds at MGM the other day. So it's like everybody I know who works on the more corporate side is freaking out. So there's basically not going to be an industry, I think, in 3 or 4 years if it keeps going like this. And the thing is, this is why I speak out, because it's not going to be here anymore. And luckily, I'm older now, so I'll be okay without it. But instead of worrying about AI and things like that, we're worried about this.
Right. Let's go to your comments and questions here. Let's see. We can take that off. Ann Vec for 10. Jim, does reading these guidelines convey any sense of passion? Or does it evoke revulsion at the mere thought of such horrifically step-by-step genuine conveyance of experience is decimated?
It's horrific. It's horrific. And here's the other thing too. It's like for young writers that want to get in the film business, to see this stuff and hear this stuff and have them already worried about making mistakes or being too edgy or anything, that's how you break in the film business. You write a pilot or a spec that is edgy and unique and cool, and it might never get made, but it will open doors for you. But if you write something like everybody else, guess what? You're just going to get passed over.
Yeah. Thomas Pickett for 5. Diversity's goal isn't trying to find the best people. It is trying to correct what are perceived wrongs of the past, says Thomas Pickett, who goes on to say for 5, isn't that the whole point of diversity? It is important of what the person is and not important what the person does.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, that's his perspective. Mine is just that, I don't think these people at DEI are trying to destroy the industry. I think inadvertently they are, because they don't understand how creative stuff works. There's a reason there's only 12,000 people in the Writers Guild. And every time I hear stats and stuff, it's half of them are working. The other half, and this is at peak TV, 6,500 people were making enough to make their pension and health, which is only $40,000 a year. So it's a very specified group of people. It's hard to get in. I've been around a very long time. I'm lucky I've been doing this for a long time and I was able to get in. But if you think there's only 6,500 people in the country making a living as TV and film writers, what does the person who worked in HR at some other big company know about screenwriting or filmmaking? Right. When the others, half of the WGA can't get jobs. And that's more.
Darth Racer for 10 says, I believe in the U.S. Constitution and boobs, so sign me up. And then Albert Neda Retro says, Lee Harvey Oswald took out the wrong candidate. I think Kennedy. I think you.
What's going on here?
Let's not have comments like that. I know you're talking about Kathleen.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
All right. GRS for 20 says, the HR takeover reminds me of a Steve Jobs quote. This is a quote from Steve Jobs. Many companies forget what it means to make great products. After initial success, sales and marketing people take over, and the product people eventually make their way out.
Yeah.
Garrett Hayden for 499 says, I'm going to create nothing for Hollywood. I'm taking my chances in Japan. Less racism to white males there. It's interesting to note.
On that note, you should, I mean, listen, anybody who wants to get in the film business, I would even say right now, don't spend your time like trying to write a bunch of spec scripts and stuff. Go shoot something. You can do it for cheap. Make waves like that. They'll come to you. If you do something that makes, it doesn't matter what it's about, you know, unless it's like some kind of really, you know, far out thing. But if you do something entertaining and cool, people will come to you.
Didn't Kanye just shoot a Super Bowl commercial on an iPhone? But he spent $7 million on it and then made like 20 million after it aired.
Yeah.
But he's like buying a spot on the Super Bowl. Correct me on the facts if I'm not going to get it right, but
how are you spending $7 million with an iPhone?
No, he paid to run it during the Super Bowl.
Oh, okay.
Right. But he just shot the commercial on an iPhone. All right. Comment here from Changer of Ways, Beep Bop Boop for 5 says, I was a screenwriting student from BYU, abandoned my career after seeing the writing on the wall. Most did.
Which that I think is sad. But, you know, it's like, you know, I've considered myself very lucky. I've been able to I've done nothing but write for 15 years. And before that, I produced indie films. So for 25 years, I've made a living just doing this. It's great. But you should still try and work on it. But you got to work different angles. You know, and like it just said, go shoot something. You know, we were talking about swingers earlier. You know, what swingers cost? $250,000. You could shoot swingers out for $10,000, really, the way they shot it with the technology you have in the editing. You know, yeah. Go make a short, go make a film. That's the way to really make some waves.
Thomas Pickett for 5 says, oh, yes, they are destroying remaking. Study collectivism. This is what fascism, communism, and progressivism does. From Eric O'Sullivan for 20 says, it is about postmodern ideas of power. They want the power to scare you and push you around. Why is it working? It's all Ivy League business school grads. It's all academia. Doesn't sell well to blue collar folk, does it?
There's a little bit of truth in that, I think. But yeah. Okay, next question.
Well, Marcus Glover sends in a super sticker.
I feel like that they don't make television; they watch it and they comment on it, and that's how they get their money. Essentially, we could become one of these DEI consultants.
Yeah. Well, there's an old saying in the film business: just because you can drive a car doesn't mean you can fix it. Because you can watch a movie and critique it doesn't mean you know how to make one.
Yeah. From Rumble, Sam Tesla says, Jim, you probably burned some bridges with this interview. Are you worried about potential backlash? What are your plans moving forward?
I'll figure that out after I completely burn down my career in the next 10 minutes. No, I'm at the point in my career where I've been very lucky. I've worked with a lot of great people. I can just say what I want now. It's like, you know, I'll still get work. I'll still get things made, you know, and like I said, mostly I work in indie film, and indie film does not care about, you know, anything except the bottom line, really, you know? So it's like, you know, if I get completely burned, I'll just start doing film critiques on Film Threat. How's that?
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Do you think it's worth it for?
By the way,
I was gonna say, do you think it's worth it for a new writer to even want to go into the big studio system?
It's. I always say, look, if you do a indie film, if you try to put indie film together, it's like starting your own business. You have to do a lot of work. You have to for years. I've had scripts. One script, it took me 5 years to get made. And at one point, Antoine Fuqua was going to direct it. Ethan Hawke was going to be in it. It took years and years and years. It's a blacklist script. And I just kept pushing. I felt like Siphius pushing the boulder up the hill. And finally, you know, it was 10 years ago, Nick Cage said he would do it. And Paco Cabezas, who's a big TV director, directed. We got it made. You know, so it took 5 years of grinding and grinding and grinding. And that work pays off. But it's just, I don't know. What was the original question?
Yeah, I mean, is it even worth wanting to go into the big studio system?
I mean, not the studio system. I mean, okay, this is what I was saying. I'm sorry, guys. But when you work more like that, put a feature together, especially on the indie side, it's like you're starting a business. But if you go try to get into TV or do a studio film, and studio films are really hard to get those jobs, you're basically working for somebody. You're an employee, as opposed to kind of having your own little fiefdom that you're kind of have some
small business, basically.
Yeah, you're starting a small business as opposed to working for the man.
Davina Duckworth asks, can Jim talk about the whisper networks? Are there whisper networks?
I don't even know what those are.
Oh, okay. How common is it for someone to have their material stolen by a colleague during a sensitivity session, says Brock Sampson?
I mean, look,
well, we're gonna talk about that in a minute, but
okay, there's an old thought process that, like, look, if you have a great idea and someone steals it and that was your only idea, you shouldn't be trying to be a screenwriter anyway. You know, and too many people get caught up in that kind of stuff. It's like, and the only people I ever hear talk about are usually amateur writers. It's sure things get stolen. We have someday have to do this story about how an entire script of mine got stolen and turned into 2 movies after that. That's a whole thing I mentioned to you once before. We'll have to do that.
Yeah.
I think my NDA is over on that one. And that was just flat out, they reused the script. But you know, don't worry about that kind of stuff. Don't just copyright. Don't register your stuff with the WGA, or if you do, always copyright. Always copyright.
And Eric O'Sullivan says for 20 says, hey Jim, I paid $20 for that. Next question. Bad form, kid. Says thanks, Chris and Alan. Wait, what?
What? I
thought Jim's been pretty forthcoming here. Sorry about that, Eric.
Sorry.
And he tells us that another $20 to tell us that. Patrick Lemire says, imagine being a good actor or writer who fits in these categories and everyone assumes you are a diversity hire. It's going to harm more careers than it helps.
That could be very true. I don't know of any specific instances, because here's the thing, is almost everybody in the film industry, 99% of them are not racist or look at even this stuff. You know, it's kind of the outside influence that makes such a big deal about it.
And then Patrick Lemire for 499 goes on to say, so Jim, Sundance is not indie film anymore. They seem to be down with all the new rules. Any danger of it taking indie? I think Sundance is its own thing. It's very much they curate a certain type of film.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And indie film is decentralized. It's pretty decentralized. So
yeah,
it's not going to affect each other.
Yeah. And then Tom Siebert says, kudos to Jim for coming forward here. Well, it's not like Jim is coming forward. He's just a filmmaker and a screenwriter and directed and produced projects. And it's just like, Jim, the reason I think it's important to and you can find Jim on IMDb. You can look at all his projects and find where to see his films and see his, breadth of experiences. Like, there is another path. Everyone thinks, I want to go to Hollywood. And it's like, but you don't have to. I mean, that's what Film Threat's been all about, is like, hey, consider a different way to get that. And then you're not going to be burdened by these rules where you might just get hired because for certain reasons that may not be for the best reasons.
Yeah. And also, too, the more you're in the system, the more things are a letdown. Look, I've had some films get made that I'm almost embarrassed by, that were great scripts. And by the time, bad producers, we did one movie where suddenly this producer wanted to have like a cop drive around in a Bentley. It's like, wait, what? It made no sense. Then we found out he could get half off a Rolls Royce if he put it in the movie. It's like, come on, guys. And that's how bad movies get made. It's just, there's so many people, that bring money in too, that have different agendas. I just did something for Sony. I'm not going to say anything bad about it yet. It's not even through post, but let's just
say. Does it rhyme with Madam Schmeb?
No, but no, it's a small action film, but let's just say that I saw some of it and I was like, who's this character in it? Cause I wrote it. And I was like, then just some girl shows up who's terrible. And it's the financier's daughter. Or girlfriend.
I was just going to ask you that. That seems to happen all the time. It's always the financier's like daughter or girlfriend.
Yeah.
Or wife or mistress.
Yeah.
Janan Klassen for 2 says, thoughts and prayers with the Kansas City NFL parade. Why, did something happen?
Yeah, somebody shot. There's some shots fired. I don't know.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Oh my God. What world do we live in? God. Red French Moon says, my question to Jim, I know the artist doesn't need to be like the Moulin Rouge cliche, but where is the creation in all of that? the romanticism of creativity, even in showbiz. It existed before.
Well, the romance of creativity is when you're young. That's
right.
When you do it. And when you're first getting in, it's like, unfortunately, I'll admit it too. It's like I was a much better writer when I was trying to break in because I could just be crazy, and try whatever. Now I'm more calculating because I'm like, if I'm going to spend 3 months writing a script, I want to get paid for it. I want to option it right away. I want to try to get it made. So I'll be like, okay, how does this appeal to actors? What's the market? So I'm more cynical, but I'm also older and I got a kid and a girlfriend. We got to pay the bills, But yeah, when you're young and you're trying to get in, that's when you write, you just go crazy, right? 5 or 6 of the most insane scripts ever. Break every rule, Now
I want to ask you about something else, Jim, we were talking about. We did a story on the sensitivity read, and I think I discussed that with you. And come to learn that the sensitivity read, this group was featured in a story called "Why Are So Many Wannabe Screenwriters Getting Scammed?" From pitch fests to online script coaches, any wannabe Hollywood screenwriters are getting scammed. This is from 2018, July 31st, 2018, from the Hollywood Reporter. We'll put a link in the description for this video. But there are a lot of groups. I mean, if you're an up and coming screenwriter, director, filmmaker, there are a lot of programs. I mean, Quentin Tarantino famously took Dove S.S. Simmons directing seminar, where he basically says, you got to make your days. That's like the big thing that like Quentin learned was you got to make your days when you're a director. That's what you got to do. You got to make your days. Well, there are a lot of other consultants, people you can give money to. And we did a story about the sensitivity read, and we showed about like 15 minutes of a video that was from a longer seminar. This organization that was featured in that video is actually in this article. And we got into, you and I were having a text exchange about a lot of things. I mean, some of these companies charge a lot of money to look at your script, to give you advice with sort of the dream down the road. What do you think of some of these organizations? I'm trying to find the exact.
Well, I think there's a simple formula. If you're going to pay anybody money to give you advice on a script, make sure they've sold scripts and they've had movies made. It's pretty simple because there's a lot of people who give a lot of advice. And look, I've been brought in to rewrite scripts many times where somebody hired somebody who were one of these coaches. They paid them $20,000 and they just made a mess of the whole thing, like unreadable. And I can fix that like in 3 days and take half as much money because I know what I'm doing. So it's like, okay, I'll fix this for you. But it comes down to like, I've never read a book about how to write a screenplay. I just look at screenplays online. And that's what I tell people all the time. Instead of paying for all this stuff and joining these classes, watch Aaron Sorkin videos on YouTube, Intention and Obstacle. It's all there. I don't think you need to spend money. Now, if you can find somebody who's actually done it, or has a track record as a real producer or real writer, then sure, then it's worth paying them money because they have real world experience as well. Because it's not just about writing scripts. It's about how do you sell a script? How do you get a script made? Because every step of the way is different. You write a script to get attention with producers. Then the producers want a different draft for actors. Then maybe a different draft for financiers. So this whole intricate, game you've got to kind of maneuver and manage to get a movie down the road, or else you're stuck. And I don't think any of these people know that kind of stuff.
Here I found the quote. It says, Roadmap Writers, which is the sensitivity reading where that came from, is one of several companies that provides a script analysis and other forms of counsel. Among its offerings are brief telephone consultations with executives who will read the first few pages of the screenplay and chat about it for 15 minutes at a cost of $45 or $275 for a full hour. Among those offering their insight to junior managers who have no clients listed at IMDb and a development assistant with an independent production company. Roadmap CEO Joey Tuccio did not respond to a request for comment. So yeah, this was brought to my attention. Also, someone actually who used to work at Slamdance told me he worked with Roadmap Writers and actually got very good advice directly from Joey. So there are some mixed signals with that. I think my issue with the sensitivity read is you would never get Quentin Tarantino. You would never get filmmakers like Kevin Smith. And if you submit yourself to a sensitivity read, I think what you're doing is you're giving over some type of control to someone else. And I think that kind of feedback can be destructive rather than constructive. And I don't think it's going to result in you actually improving your script to sell it. And it just, to me, it's another gatekeeping. And it's what annoys me too is that, like, we can debate these issues. I disagree. The other thing is they're only looking at sensitivity one direction. I feel like what's recently become in Hollywood, because Hollywood used to champion blue collar workers. If you look at old Hollywood movies, even in the 70s and 80s, who were the heroes? People who were blue collar. Freaking Bill Murray drives a cab in Stripes, has a bad day.
Walter Hill movie.
There's so many movies. Blue collar workers were championed by Hollywood in so many films. Not anymore. In fact, a shorthand in modern Hollywood, if someone has a Southern accent, that means they're racist. Now, are you going to do a sensitivity read and have a white person read the script to see how they might be sensitive to certain things in your script and might be offended? The sensitivity read only seems to go one direction, where sensitivity for certain types of people. And you know what? I think it's another way to police art. I'm against it. And I think if you're going to do it, get a diversity of opinion, not one opinion. What are your thoughts on this?
Here's the thing. It's all stupid to me. I think this is all really dumb, because the thing is, especially if you're doing a film, I mean, TV is a little bit different because you're trying to write a sample. But if you're trying to write a script to get it made, a feature film, you write for a movie star. You don't write about, like, I don't want to offend this person, that person. You want to get something made and do it fast. You write something that, like, somebody wants to make. It's not that complicated. And there's certain ways you can structure the script and make sure they work. Like, don't have 50 characters. Have one character who's trying to get somewhere, with everything stopping them. And like Sorkin says, obstacle and intention. Just somebody's trying to get somewhere. There's obstacles in their way. They're trying to do something. There's obstacles in their way. And if you write something like that, you can make it a black lesbian who's trying to get, it doesn't matter. It's like, but those things don't matter. What matters is what you write, the market, does it appeal to movie stars? Does it appeal to people who can get your film financed? Because if you're super sensitive and great, 5 of the people from, Riverdale want to do it, but nobody knows who they are, maybe they're big stars now. It doesn't matter. Your movie will never get made. So, on that note too, I got so mad, Chris, about this whole sensitivity thing, because I think they are scamming people, that if you don't mind me just pitching one thing really quick. If people want to go to my own website and just send me email, I think I'm going to do a free Zoom in 2-3 weeks, and everybody can come and I'll give advice like how to sell your script. Not how to write.
What's the website? What's the website?
Just jamesjagnew.com.
All right, I'm going to go to it right now. We're going to share it.
Yeah, if you
you're going to just do this for free.
I'm going to do it for free. Anybody who sends me email, I'll email everybody back a Zoom. We'll spend like 45 minutes talking about it. And I'll show you don't need to pay $300 for somebody to say your script's not sensitive enough.
All right, I'm going to share a screen with James J. Agnew. There it is. Look at this.
There it is.
I'm going to accept your cookies. Thanks for the cookie, Jim.
Thanks. Anna
all right, recent work. There it is. All That We Destroy. It's on Hulu. You got something on Hulu.
Yeah. Well, just as a side note, if anybody goes, what does Jim know? I've had over $40 million invested into scripts I've written. So I have some say in all this,
And by the way, what I love, you keep Film Threat in your bio.
Yeah.
Look at that. It says a former contributor writer to Film Threat who played guitar for the industrial rock group Hate Departments.
I forget how cool I am. Now that I'm older, I'm like, wow, I was cool once.
You've worked with Dario Argento, John Carpenter, Oscar. Okay, that's great.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Worked with Nicholas Refn, Antoine Fuqua creatively. So I know how these things work. But what I really want to help people with is, look, there's a million people who take your money how to write a script. I don't like teaching people how to really write scripts unless I'm really working with them one-on-one seriously. But I know a lot of tricks of how to make your script better that you can sell it. And that's what I want to teach people. And I don't know, it's free advice. It's like, just do this. Don't track your characters, make them show up page 1. Don't have like your lead show up page 7. There's just little tricks you can learn that producers love and actors love. And, don't waste time on sensitivity readings and things like that.
All right.
I guess Roadmap ain't calling me now that I burned down my career. So that's enough. I just burned 2 avenues of employment in 1 hour.
I got a whole thing from a letter from them, and they were like trying to convince me I was wrong. Like, why are you so upset that sensitivity readings are being done? It's clearly they didn't watch the video or even think for a minute that how this could be perverted and used in a bad way. But my whole thing is you're not going to get new up and coming people who have something different to say because you're gatekeeping and in the worst way possible. And the whole thing they were talking about, uncomfortable conversations, basically struggle sessions. It was the most manipulative email. I started to respond to it. I don't know. I'll whatever.
Here's the thing. I've been very lucky to work with some of the highest level execs in the film business. None of them give a crap about any of that stuff. If you wrote a script that was like super racist and super like backwards, they'd be like, what the hell is this? But outside of that, they're not going to go, I don't know if that's the true, experience of that underdeveloped, or person. They don't care. They're going to be like, John Wick, shit, we can turn this into a franchise. That's how most of them think, unfortunately. And for the, and for good reason too.
Well, you would not get Blazing Saddles written by, Richard Pryor, Mel Brooks.
No.
Which,
Tony, I used to work for Tony Kaye many years ago, and Tony Kaye's one of the smartest guys I've ever met, and he made American History X. You think that would get made nowadays? And with these rules, no, it wouldn't even get past go. And it has a lot to say about race in a good way, but according to those rules that we just went over, American History X wouldn't even get past go. So,
well, let me know if you want to, you could even host it here. If you wanted to on Film Threat, StreamYard, we could do like a special. If you don't want to do Zoom or do your own, but go through Jim and we'll figure it out. I'm saying if you need help, we know how to do this stuff.
Well, I'm not very high tech. Like I said, Anna did my website.
It looks great.
Chris and Alan know my girlfriend, so that's what we're talking about.
I've known Anna for years. She's in the documentary Attack of the Doc, Anna David.
Yeah.
Now people know you've been outed, Jim. You're with an incredibly beautiful, intelligent woman.
Yeah, well,
and you're a very lucky man.
And another G4 alumni like you, Chris.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
oh my God.
Look, thanks for having me on. I hope, I still have a career. If not, I'll just hang out with you guys every Thursday night and watch movies.
We got a few more, we'll see. Some quick.
Time.
Okay, real quick. Okay. Anvec gifted 5 Film Threat memberships. Check out the exclusive videos for members only. Bass Player 2011 5 for $4.99. If Tarantino took his scripts to a sensitivity read, his films would just be title cards.
100%.
It's one thing we were talking about doing as a joke. What if we asked someone to do a sensitivity read, sent them the script for Blazing Saddles, but just called it Blazing Saddles Part 2? That could be kind of fun. How would they even know the difference? They've never seen Blazing Saddles. Thomas Pickett for 5 says, great podcast, writers/blockbusters screenwriting podcast. Thanks for the recommendation. Rarefied Air just sends in 5. Thank you for that. Albert Nada Retro for 2. My source was Wikipedia. Albert Nada Retro for 10. Whisper Network is an informal chain of information passed privately between people, usually women. It consists of gossip about people in a work community alleged of being sexual harassers or abusers.
Oh, okay.
That's related. It's not related to what we're talking about. That's related to
the D-Files,
the D-Files, which you weren't here for that. So
got it. I mean, listen, there's lots of screenwriters I know who and showrunners and stuff who will talk about this stuff, when we're around each other. They can't say anything, they don't, and they make a lot more money than I do in TV. So it's like I understand. It's like they got families, they got kids in college. They can't, I'm a little bit more of a pirate than they are. So
right. Patrick Lemire says James Agnew is awesome. Man crush.
Oh,
well, there you go. Question for the guest: best experience and worst experience in the industry, says Saint Michael Archangel.
It was all in the same movie. We did. I wrote the first film I wrote that got made was in Italy with Adrian Brody and Dario Gento, and that's a whole book in itself. That those 3 months in Italy were the most chaotic, crazy, fun, and depressing time because we ran out of money. We didn't have enough money. There were lawsuits, but it was just a blast. I mean, I went to church with Dario Argento on a Sunday morning. Like, that's how crazy it was. You know, we got in a big fist fight at the at the rap party, and they threw a backpack out in a river, and then me and this other guy I worked with ended up staying out all night, and Adrian Brody's stand-in, and they thought we were dead. The next while we were hungover at somebody's house we didn't even know, and the State Department was looking for us. I mean, that's a whole book in itself. So it was one film that was just nonstop adventures, disappointments, excitement, chaos. It was cool and bad too at the same time.
Joe, not a Fed for two, says American History Latinx could get made. There you go. Richard S says, I heard that when you describe a character, if a character has no ethnicity, the default is white. Is that true?
No, that's wrong. That's wrong. Most people too, I know, who are very experienced screenwriters don't give any description anymore. And it depends on where you're at too in the process. You know, if it doesn't add to the story and you don't need it, you don't need it, you know?
Right.
So yeah, no, it doesn't mean that at all. It just means, actually kind of means the opposite. It means you're open to anybody.
Right. And from Rumble, shout out to everyone watching.
Ethnicity never comes into wait, at what point does ethnicity come into a project that you're working on?
If it's specific, I mean, like let's say you're doing something, you know, you're doing Mississippi Burning. Then some people have to be, you know. But if it's you know, an action thing or something, you'll get all kinds of things across the board. You know, I have this project that I'm trying to direct that I've been working on. It's very much like Layer Cake, right? And it has a 32-year-old lead who's like a drug dealer, and it got pretty far down the line, and the casting director just threw everybody at me because I didn't put any ethnicity. There was, I think, Dev Patel was on there. Everybody was on there, you know, white guys, Asian guys, because it didn't matter. So, you know, if it's not specific, you're open to anything. What usually ends up happening, though, it's like, who's the person who brings the most financing to the film? That's usually the decision, you know? If it's, what's Denzel Washington's kid's name? The guy who was in Tenet, you know,
John David Washington.
Yeah, he maybe 2 years ago would have been like at the bottom list. Now he'd be at the top of the list, you know, for like a $5 million film. So, you know, yeah, it's all about name value too.
Just a few more comments here, Jim, and then we'll let you go. Techniques says a blacklist of white men.
I don't know. Well, I don't know if there's not an official one. There's, you know.
Well, there could never be an official one.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And then from Rumble, shout out to everyone watching us on Rumble. We appreciate you. From J. Aldwin Combat, Jedi with Sith. Sith standing for storytelling, integrity, talent, and honesty. Loved that comment from Gary's show yesterday. Yeah, so we've been talking about the Jedi training. This is separate from, we did a follow-up story to that anonymous writer, and we're still getting feedback from people. We're going to do a follow-up story. The stuff that people are telling us comes from all levels of the industry, from the Art Directors Guild to editors to production designers. All this DEIA training and whatnot has just infected everything.
Yeah, I mean, look, the last thing I'll say about that is I don't think anybody had bad intentions. It's trying to put like a square peg in a round hole. It might work if you have like, you know, 10,000 factory workers at Amazon, but it doesn't work in the creative field. The creative field is the creative field. It should be really how they should hire everybody is if you're going to hire 10 writers on a TV show, rip off the cover pages of all of them, read them, and the 4 best hire. You know, right. Don't even know who you're reading. That's really what, you know, I always thought this industry was like that, but, you know, it's changed a bit. So, you know, I always thought it was best person got the job, but, you know.
There you go.
His career goes down in flames.
Jim, hey, man, I want to thank you for being on here, answering our questions, responding to the sensitivity read video, and then also just for your honesty, bravery, and continue fighting the good fight with indie film. Go to jamesjagnew.com. In the next couple of weeks, you're going to be doing a seminar. If we can help with it or help promote it.
Let's figure that out. I just thought about it last night. I was like, because over COVID, I did something on Facebook groups where I answered one question, per person about the industry. And I ended up doing thousands of them, and you've been on what's the thing we've been on, Film Courage,
Film Courage. You got me hooked up with Film Courage.
Yeah. And I've got so many just great responses, and people, I love helping people. Look, there's so many ways, there's so many books and so many ways to learn how to write a script that I don't want to help people do that unless, like I said, unless it's something we're doing a lot, like they're like, okay, hey, I want you to be my coach. Fine. That's more invasive, but I can't read your script in 10 minutes and tell you how to fix it. But I can give you a lot of tricks how to sell it, and how to make it more for producers, actors, and that stuff. So, but I don't want people to get down. Keep writing and doing creative stuff. Don't let me make it look all bleak. It's like you can still get in. If I can get in, anybody can. I'm just a dumb kid from Lancaster, crystal meth capital of the world, who barely got out of college. So
that's great.
So I scammed my way in, but I did a lot of hard work though too. It's a lot of hard work. I'll just say one last thing because people don't understand it. You've got to write many specs. Don't just write one and think it's going to get made. You have to write like 10 and figure out what you're doing. Like Alan said earlier, 10,000 hours. You've got to do it. You got to spend the time.
Yeah. Well, we will let people know about your seminar on the community tab on YouTube. We post, screenings and other interesting information, or for Alan's meetup in Austin, Texas for South by Southwest. We'll post that info there. So go to the YouTube community tab. We'll promote on social media. We'll just do a seminar led by you.
Yeah.
And if we can help, we'll help.
For free. We're not going to charge people.
Free.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Cool. Great. Okay.
All right,
thanks,
Jim.
guys.
Take care.
Thanks,
Later,
guys.
man. Thanks. Bye.